Hi guys, it's Mr. Gonzalez again, here with lesson 22, flats. The main objective of this lesson is to be able to identify flat notes. Let's get started. The flat sign before a note lowers the pitch of that note. On the keyboard, play the key to the left, whether black or white. For example, we have D here. The key directly to the left of D is D flat. Now some might say, oh, but what about C? No, there is this black key in between both keys. So we go directly to the left, showing us D flat. In another example, we see F, and if we want F flat, we go one key to the left, and that would be E. So E can also be called F flat, although we do not commonly use this term. When speaking of flatted notes, the word flat comes after the letter name, as in A flat. As you see here, when we are writing out A flat, the note name comes before the flat. However, in written music, the flat sign comes before the note. When the note is on the staff, always put the flat sign first and then the note. To draw the flat sign, first draw a vertical line, like this one. Then add the heavier curved line, like this. When a flat sign is attached to a line note, the flat is centered on the line, as seen here. When the flat sign is attached to a space note, the flat is centered on the space, as seen here. Let's take a look at some exercises. In our first example, we will write flat signs before each note, then add the note name. Let's go. So first things first, I will add flat signs to the beginning of each note, making sure to center it on the line if the note is on the line, or center it on the space if the note is on the space. Now that all of our notes have flats on them, let's take a look at what clef we are in. We're in the bass clef. So, if you remember, your line sentence is good boys do fine always, and your space sentences all cows eat grass. You should be able to answer these fairly quickly. Here we see a note on our third space, so we know that this is an E, but since it has the flat sign, we have an E flat. Next, we see a note on the top line. We know this is A, but again, since it has a flat sign attached to it, we have an A flat. Next, we see a note on the third line. So here we have a D, but with the flat, we now have a D flat. Next, we see a note on the second space. We know our second space is C, and with the flat sign here, we have a C flat. Over here, we see a note on the first line. We know our first line is G, so this will be G flat. Next, we have a note on the second line. Our second line is B, so we have a B flat. Coming over here, we see a note on the first space. Our first space is A, so we have A flat. And with our second to last note, we see a note on the fourth space. We know this is our G, so this is another G flat. And then lastly, we have a note on the fourth line. Our fourth line is F. This will be F flat. For our next exercise, we will write the names of the piano keys in the boxes. Let's go. We see that we have 5 empty key boxes right here. So let's start filling them in. Alright, let's start here with this blank key. We see that it's in between D and C. If you remember from earlier, we said that the flat sign before a note lowers the pitch of that note. On the keyboard, play the key to the left, whether black or white. to find the flat note. So if this is the one directly to the right of our blank key, all we need to do is go left. And now we know this is D flat. Let's take a look over here. So we have this blank key in between G and F. So if we start on the blank key and go to the right, we know that this is G flat. Let's come down here. We see a blank key in between B and A. If we're on the blank key and we go one to the right, we see B, so the key to the left of B is B flat. Moving along, we see another blank key here in between E and D. Since our E key is directly to the right of this blank note, we know that it will be E flat. And then lastly, we see a blank key right here in between A and G. Since the A key is to the right of our blank key, we can identify this as A flat. For our next exercise, I have already written a treble clef for us. All we have to do is write the notes indicated on the staff using half notes. Let's go. Remember, our line sentence for treble clef is every good boy does fine, and then our spaces spell the word face, F, A, C, and E. That'll make this a whole lot easier. Let's take a look at our first one. We need G flat. We have our G on the second line. Now we need a D flat. Let's only use notes that are on the staff. So we can have our D here on the fourth line. Next we need a C flat. Again, we're only using notes on the staff, so we can put our C flat right here on the third space. Next we need A flat. Alright, we have an A on our second space, and with the flat in front of it, we're just fine. Now we need E flat. There are two locations for E flat, one on the first line and another on the fourth space. I'm going to put this one on the fourth space. Next, we need a B flat. Our middle line right here is B, so we'll add it right there. Then lastly, we need a F flat. Again, we have two locations. We have an F here on the first space and the F on the top line. But I will be using the first space F. And there we go. We finished this exercise. For our last exercise, I have already drawn the bass clef for us. We need to write the notes indicated on the staff using quarter notes. Let's go. Since I already went over our bass clef line sentence and our bass clef space sentence, I won't go over it again right now. Let's jump in. So now we need an E flat. We know an E lives right here on the third space, so with our flat sign, we're looking great. Next, we need a C flat. We know there's a C here on the second space, and with the flat sign, amazing. Now we need F flat. Well, there's an F right here on the fourth line, and boom, we got it, F flat. Now we need A flat. There are two locations for A, one right here on our first space, and then one all the way at the top on our last line. I will use our last line for our A flat. Next we need a D flat. Here on our third line we have D, and we add our flat sign, we have D flat. Next we need a B flat. We have a B right here on the second line, and with our flat sign we add B flat. Now we need a G flat. There are two locations we can use, either our first line or our top space. I will go with our top space for our G flat. And there we go. We finished this exercise. And that's it for today's lesson, guys. I hope you feel more confident in your ability to identify flat notes. In our next lesson, we will be looking at sharps.